Good morning. So today I'm doing my April wrap-up. These are all the books that I read in April, and let's just start talking about them. So the first book that I read was Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. So this book is a historical fiction, which is usually a genre that makes my skin crawl. But this one's about Abraham Lincoln's son, Willie Lincoln, when he dies of yellow fever? I think he had yellow fever. And after he's buried, he becomes a ghost and meets all the other ghosts that are in the cemetery. And it's so good. Like, I really liked this book. It had such a profound effect on me. Like, I had to journal after I read this, and not in a reading journal or anything, but in my actual journal where I write down I had a feeling today, and then I tell my therapist about it, that journal. It reminded me so much of dreams that I have. And I know no one actually likes hearing about other people's dreams, so just for context, a lot of my dreams, pretty much all of them, pretty consistently, are me waking up in this place where the dead go when they die, and I'm just meeting a bunch of them, and I'm usually there for a reason, I'm helping them fix something or take care of something, and then along the way I just wind up meeting different people, and they just tell me about their life and their regrets and what they learned about life, and it's really cool and interesting. That's what this reminded me of. Another thing, the writing style, the controversial writing style that this book is written in is so good. I vibed with it so hard. I might be mistaken, but from what I could tell, or what I took away from it, was that there's the parts that are from the perspective of the ghosts, and those are constantly changing. You're always switching between the different ghosts' perspectives, so you can see what everyone's thinking. And then everything that's describing what's happening in the real world is just journal entries and bits and pieces from biographies, whether it's from people who were actually there or just biographers of Lincoln describing these events. It's almost like the ghosts are there filling in all of these moments that we have no way of ever knowing, and I think that's really interesting. And the ending was kind of for me, I don't know, there are at times where it seemed to get a little bit too action-adventure, which was weird and I wasn't expecting, but fine. That's fine. The imagery of the ghosts, so I haven't really read many Victorian ghost stories, but from what I have, it really feels like a Victorian ghost story. The imagery that the ghosts have feels very old-timey Victorian ghost story to me. And most specifically, it reminded me a lot of that Disney adaptation of A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey that was done with mocap and stuff. It reminded me a lot of that, just the atmosphere, because the ghosts were all very silly, but they were still unnerving and creepy because they were ghosts. These next three books are ones that I talked about in a video earlier this month, because I read these all pretty quickly, just in the same week. And they're all just books from my childhood. But I do want to give an update, because if you've been watching my videos, you may have noticed this continuing saga where I was searching for a hardcover copy of The Dark Hills Divide because nostalgia reasons, and I found one. I am unreasonably excited about this. Just having a hardcover copy makes me want to reread it again. And it's fresh, when you open it, it cracks. But in any case, I'm really excited to have a hardcover edition of this book, because this is what I had when I was a kid. And I remember so much of my reading experience with this book being with the actual book itself being so fucking cool. So I'm just excited. I'm just excited. That's it. I'm excited. The next book that I read is Packing for Mars by Mary Roach. So I love Mary Roach. I want her to adopt me. I want her to be my mom. Her sense of humor is just so fun, and she's just great. So what Mother Mary Roach does in Packing for Mars, she takes the concept of space travel and just really humanizes it. Because I feel like astronauts are these larger than life kind of superhuman figures to a lot of us. And what she does is she just takes that and brings it back down to Earth, so to speak. Because there's a lot of things that go into preparing to send humans into space, just because we're people. we're just humans. Like, we have things that we need to consider when we're going into space, like, you know, how to make a toilet without gravity. And it's just a really fun book. It's a little bit outdated just because there's all of these references to how they don't know how the NASA budget is gonna pass, which is really unfortunate because they were talking about how they were going to start building a moon base, I think, and then the NASA budget got slashed. And yes, when you nut in space, it pushes you backwards. Last book I read was Ada's Algorithm by James Essinger. So this book came out in like 2014, I think, and I've had it since then. Like, I even started it in 2014, and I got almost all the way through it, but then I just didn't finish it. But I had known about Ada Lovelace because of my steampunk face. I didn't know she was Lord Byron's daughter, which I feel like, I don't know, like, I think that's something that you know about Ada Lovelace if you know who she is, because like I knew who Lord Byron was, and I knew who Ada Lovelace was, but I didn't know they were related at all. The first half is mostly kind of biographical and leads up to her meeting Charles Babbage, and talks about how she was really fascinated with his difference engine that he was making, but he never actually made one. And it basically just talks about how she became the first computer programmer in like 1840 whatever. And like, it's debated, but like, she was the first computer programmer, fuck you. But then the second half like got into her writing about the potential that she saw for the analytical engine that Babbage had designed. And what she's describing is like a modern computer. Like, she talks about digitizing information like music and pictures, and it mentions how coming up with metaphors for explaining science to people was just second nature to her, which, like, people that are able to do both, be the scientist and then also make it accessible and communicate it to the layman, like, those are typically really important people, like Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking, just to name a couple. You might have heard of them. Yeah, I'm just really interested in the history of computers and tech and stuff, and I'm more into like recent history with like how fast computers are evolving now. It's just like crazy exponential growth. But it's interesting to see like the very, very beginnings of like computer science's prehistory, basically. Like, we could have been ahead 100 or 200 years if Ada had been taken seriously, which is crazy because like Ray Kurzweil says we're supposed to hit the singularity in like 2045. So like, if we were already 200 years ahead, it's just crazy to think about. Like, you can't, like, it's a rabbit hole. It's a whole rabbit hole. Some stuff I didn't like about this book was that, so maybe I'm just an idiot who doesn't know math, but when the author was trying to explain what the difference engine did, he never just said it. Like, he would try to explain math with words instead of just showing the formula with the numbers. I'm just so visual. I would have really appreciated if he had just written out like the table that he was trying to explain. And then there were also all these instances where he kept saying that like Babbage had all of these diagrams explaining how the machine worked, but then he never showed the diagrams. And it's a really like weird, complicated machine to try and imagine. Understanding the intimacies of this machine and how it works and understanding like math isn't really necessary to appreciate the story that's being told here. But I'm just one of those people that's like, when you present something like that to me, I just have to understand everything about it. So it's really unfortunate that I'm kind of a dumbass. But these are all the books that I read this month. If you read any of these, I'd love to hear what you thought of them in the comments. And yeah, I think that's it. So I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you next week.